Go into as much detail as you want to. We're all friends here, so feel as comfortable as you want to share the story, but tell me about Louie's accident.
Yep, so it was a Tuesday afternoon. We were having a bit of a debrief one afternoon. There was a long-time family friend had come to visit unexpectedly, and we were just standing around talking with him, and Louie was there running around being Louie, and we were quite close to some cattle yards. There was a couple of my sister's horses there, and we were standing around talking for probably half an hour. Louie went over and patted one of the horses, and we turned our back for what felt like 2 seconds. It was probably 10 or 15, and next minute Louie was in this yard with his horses, and he was trying to pat them, but the horses didn't realise that, and he started to run towards one of them, and we yelled out for him to stop, but being the age he was, he thought it was a bit of a game, so he ran a bit faster, and then this all happened in a matter of probably 10 seconds, and he ran past one horse, and it sort of looked back and it just gave it a kick, and it hit Louie right in the right side of his face, and I'll never forget, he actually did a full backward somersault and landed on his face, and my sister Emma and my father were there, and my sister actually got to him first, and she was probably only 3 metres from him when it happened, and she picked him up, and he just went limp, and I was probably 5 metres from Emma, and I looked at her, and she looked at me, and she handed him to me, and the look on her face was a look of he's your dead child. And
can I jump in, mate? Sorry to be disrespectful. I know you're telling this story. Is that what you thought at that point, both of you?
Definitely. To see what just happened to him, I didn't think there was any coming back from that. But within, I started screaming his name, and I gave him, and I shook him a couple of times, which I don't think you're supposed to do that. But he took a big breath of air, and then he started not crying, but sort of sobbing, and anyway, he was breathing, and I got through 2 fences, I don't know how, and I got back through them with him, and we got back to the car, which was 20 metres away, and I think Dad called the ambulance, and anyway, we jumped in the car, and I said, we're not waiting for the ambulance, we're just going to go to the hospital, and so we're 20 minutes from town. On a normal day, it takes 20 minutes to get to Kingaroy, and
let me jump in there, right? Because I know this little bit of the story. This is very interesting, and Emma, we'll pass back to you. So you had Louie in your arms. Therefore, Emma goes to jump in the driver's side to drive to the hospital. Emma, what did Lockie say at that point?
Am I allowed to say that? Is anyone highly offended by that word? He said to me, I actually didn't remember this, but he said, remember I said to you, get the F out of the driver's seat. And so I jumped out, he gave me Louie, and we just went.
It's 20 minutes to the hospital from your house?
25 k's.
25 k's. How long did it take you to get to Kingaroy Hospital?
I actually told you 10 minutes, Matt, but Lockie corrected me and said 8. Hopefully there's no police room.
You're holding Louie at this point. Do you remember much of that trip?
I do. I can resonate a lot with the video that Nancy just saw and Tristan's mum saying how hard it was to look at her son. He was just so horrifically injured. And Lockie was really, really panicked, as we all were, but I was just trying to be really calm. And he had started to really cry by that stage, and I just kept saying to Lockie, he's breathing and he's moving, he's okay, he's going to be okay, he's going to be okay. So the trip to town, I swear, this is not a lie, between our home and the hospital driveway, there was not one car in front of us, anywhere to be seen. At 4:30 on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, busy time, right?
So someone was looking after us.
Oh, 100%. You said as you pulled into the hospital,
the ambulance was just leaving.
Ambulance was pulling out to come and get Louie.
Mm.
When you first go in, and obviously we live in a rural area, we haven't got, as sad as it is, we haven't got the experience or the equipment or the qualifications of a specialist in a more city type of area. Tell us about what happened at the Kingaroy Hospital.
I think we'd only been there minutes and had called CareFlight back then, LifeFlight. I think as soon as they saw him, they knew that they weren't equipped to deal with his level of injuries. I remember our doctor, Dr. Aiken, and our nurse, Marie Evans, if anyone knows her, be sure to give her a big kiss for me next time you see her. They were so good. There was really nothing they could do. They sedated him, and obviously we tried to manage his pain, which would have been incredible. And we just waited. So it wasn't until after we'd been home, after Louie's accident, and that we found out that evening, just in the southwest region, there had been 3 children.
That afternoon, 3 kids just in our region had all required the same.
So from Toowoomba and around, 3 children under 3 were airlifted to Brisbane via CareFlight.
So therefore, you guys had to wait at the Kingaroy Hospital. Lockie, handball it back to you, mate. How long were you at the hospital for? What was going on for you guys? Specifically, what was going on for you then?
If my memory serves me correctly, I think we were there for about 2 hours. 4? I've got a very good memory then. Yeah, so we were there for quite some time. The chopper was called within 10 or 15 minutes of us getting to the hospital in Kingaroy, and yeah, we had our hands tied really. We just had to wait.
As a father, I'm a father myself. If my boy was ever in the same situation, I know what I'm like. I would need to know that something's happening. How are your emotions having to wait 4 hours in a country hospital?
We were getting pretty anxious. Obviously, not knowing what the full extent of the injuries were. When I was in the hospital, actually, that's probably when it started to sink in a bit, and I recall punching the wall in the hospital. I was probably blaming myself a bit for what happened. So
why do you blame yourself?
Oh, just because of the situation we were in. We're all there watching him, and we took our eyes off him for a second, and yeah, I guess that little bit of guilt runs through you a bit.
Okay. Finally into the LifeFlight chopper, CareFlight at the time. You jumped in with Louie, Emma. Lockie, you drove up behind. By then, your mum drove, probably a good thing. We didn't need you on the roads in the state you would have been in. Emma, tell us about the ride in the chopper. What's actually happening? Because obviously the specialists are in there with you, right?
So when they arrived at Kingaroy Hospital, they assessed Louie, made sure his pain was under control, that he was correctly sedated for the trip to Brisbane. They just briefed me. I don't remember what they said, to be honest, about what it would be like, what would happen, that it would be loud, that they'd give us both earmuffs. So I actually got onto a hospital bed and they put Louie onto me and strapped him to me. And I just remember feeling, we heard them landing. We heard them fly over and we heard them land. So I remember at that time just feeling incredibly calm, like we were getting him to where he needed to be, and we could start the process of finding out how bad everything was and all of that sort of thing. So it was actually such a relief to hear them land and come in, walk through those doors. So the flight, I think, was about 45 minutes. It felt like as soon as we were up, we had landed. But listening to Tristan's mum talk and saying, just looking out the window and praying, sorry, in the microphone, that really resonated with me because I remember doing exactly the same
thing. When you went into the room, you said there was like, and this isn't a word of a lie, 30 different specialists in the room.
So when we arrived at Lady Salento, we went straight into emergency. It's a pretty spectacular hospital for people who haven't been there. And we went into one little emergency bay, and there was honestly about 30 people. So there was nurses from ICU, there was anaesthetists, there was medical imaging staff, there was a neurosurgeon, a maxillofacial surgeon, there was just people everywhere ready to take him off the hands of care.
And I don't think, hearing this story before, I don't think they realised the extent of where Kingaroy Hospital was at, right? But they were asking questions that they couldn't have answered.
So LifeFlight did a handover. Our crew were Costa, Mick and James. So Costa was our doctor. And he was doing a handover to the staff and they were saying, well, where's his images? Where's his x-rays? Where's this, where's that? And Costa was like, this is a country hospital. There was a doctor and a nurse looking after this
doing
little boy
as best as they could with what they got.
Here. So and we can't thank Kingaroy Hospital enough. The care that they gave Louie while he was there was second to none with what they had. So you can shout out to our little hospital.
Lockie, back to you if you don't mind. How long was Louie in Lady Salento for?
He was in hospital for 2 weeks, so we were down there for 2 weeks with him in Brisbane.
And in that 2 weeks, what were you guys doing?
The first night we slept in the floor of the hospital. It wasn't...
Do you remember that night?
Yeah, I won't forget it. The carpet wasn't very comfy.
Not very romantic in the waiting room?
Not at all. And then I think the next night we had a run at McDonald House, and we had that for basically the rest of our stay. So in the ICU, there's a bed beside the kid's bed, so for one parent to sleep, and I was the lucky parent that got to go to the Ronald McDonald House. So I was sort of going back there on my own and commuting back and forth to the hospital for the 2 weeks.
And
Emma, you stayed in hospital with Louie?
So he was in ICU for 4 days initially, and we had a room upstairs. And then once he went to the ward, I stayed with him on the ward, and look, he was going back and forth. And then after his reconstruction, he went back to ICU. And
I'm assuming going back in the ward is a good thing, given that it's not needing that specialist care. Would that be fair to say?
Yes. So he went back to the ward before his reconstruction. So he was in ICU a little bit longer because it took him a little bit longer to start breathing on his own because of the nature of his fractures and things. So once they were confident that he was okay, and doing that on his own, they moved him to the ward, and we just were up there for 3 days, I think, before his big surgery the following Monday.
if you don't mind, Louie's injuries ongoing now. Like what I know, worst case scenario, and where you guys initially thought, but what actually happened with Louie?
It was very reassuring because when we got to the hospital, we actually couldn't believe he was alive. And as soon as we arrived in emergency and they assessed him, they took him for 2 or 3 hours of medical imaging, and they wanted to make sure his brain was okay, which was a miracle. He suffered not 1 ounce of brain damage, which in itself was just very hard to believe. And they also wanted to check his lungs, his spine, all his vitals, just to make sure that there was nothing bigger that they were dealing with. They then had to reconstruct his face from here to about here. He was kicked on his right side, and because of the force, there was fractures around his eye sockets that severed the optic nerve in his left eye, so he's got total and permanent blindness in his left eye.
Which is so tragic, right? But given what could have possibly happened, it's a godsend. Lockie, I want to ask you this one. You mentioned just earlier tonight that the force of the kick actually, there was. I'll let you tell it. But what had happened to Louie's face after that?
Yeah. So for the next 3 days after he was in hospital, we could actually. I don't know how many people in the room are familiar with a horseshoe, but they've got a stamped writing on it of the brand of the horseshoe, and we could read the writing from the horseshoe imprint on his face. That stayed there for about 3 days, and there was just a clear, distinguished line. We couldn't believe it.
With Mandy's assistance, we did our best to try to get some of the LifeFlight people here tonight. Sadly, they've moved on and we couldn't, but it would have been a great... I know how thankful and gracious you guys are that they obviously were there that day. What we do have, and the next best thing was to try to get Louie here. I really wanted him to crack the whip, but half the room has told me, who knows Louie, that he would be flying off the rooftops. He's that kind of kid. But Susan's going to give me a hand. What we do have for the ladies and gentlemen here tonight is a couple of photos of young Louie. No. Now he was almost 2, he's now 6, is that right? How long ago are these photos?
These were in December last year.
Susan, would you mind going back to that last one in the what do you call that, Lockie?
His beloved buggy.
The buggy. He's definitely a happy kid. Now you can see his left eye. Is that something he's conscious of? Does he talk about that a lot?
Not often. Occasionally, but not often. There's honestly nothing we've come across so far that he can't do.
He's at school now?
He has. He started prep this year.
School kids can be brutal. Has he had any bullying because of his eye?
No. You actually wouldn't know to look at him. We were very, very fortunate that he was able to keep his eye intact. It moves and looks just as his other eye does, so it's very hard to tell. Yes, but we've had a few calls from the school office this year already about head bumps and falling off monkey bars and running around corners into people, so we're thinking the depth perception has set in as a bit of a problem.
Now, earlier on we were having a chat. You spoke to Louie tonight. You told him you were going to be sharing the story. Can you tell us what he told you tonight?
I spoke to him this afternoon on the way home. He was in the paper this week, so we got to school on Wednesday morning and his little mate came and stood next to him and unfolded this giant page from the newspaper, and he's like, "Lou, I found you in the paper."
You're famous.
And he was like, "Oh, thanks, Danny. Good on you, mate. Thank you." So I think he was wondering why he was in the paper. And
you hadn't told him about the newspaper?
No, we didn't really. I don't know why we chose to do that, but And then I said to him that we were coming to a special dinner tonight for LifeFlight, and it was to raise money for helicopters like the one that he went in, so that other kids or people who had accidents or that were unwell could also go in helicopters to the hospital. And I said, is there anything that you want me to tell anyone about your accident or about you? And his words were, I'll try and do his words, like, Mum, just tell them I'm like the Hulk. And I then said, okay, is there anything that if you could meet the people that were on your plane that night, that would you like to talk to someone that maybe flew the helicopter or the doctor that looked after you? What would you say? He said, well, they're like the Hulk too. So,
Mandy, can you echo that back to the team, please? They're all like the Hulk.
Superheroes all around.
And you're the Hulk too, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being in the newspaper, being up here tonight, I feel like I've been pestering you now for a little while, but it will stop. Thank you so much for all the chats that we've had. How does it make you feel, sort of sharing a bit of Louie with all of us tonight, and also with in the newspaper? Does it feel okay to do as a family unit?
We were very happy to do it. We felt very honoured to be asked. When Pauline rang us, it was it was an honour to be asked. Well, I guess in our conversations we were very conscious that this is Louie's story to tell, not ours. And when he's old enough to understand, he doesn't remember anything. He only knows what we've shared with him. And obviously there's things we haven't shared. As he gets older, we'll be able to do that. But I think anything, we immediately just thought any way we can help, raise awareness, funds. LifeFlight was something we were always familiar with living in town. I don't know how many times a week we see that chopper flying in and out, and particularly I work at St Mary's, so it feels like all day sometimes. The kids are always sticking their heads out the windows and it never gets old. But you don't really understand the magnitude of the service that they offer until you're the one that needs them.
Exactly. Lockie, I'll ask you this one, if that's all right, mate. How has life changed? You go through a near-death experience like it is for anyone that has a similar incident. How's life changed for you guys after Louie's accident?
I think there's always a bit of a, you always have a bit of a feeling that something bad's going to happen all the time, and that's probably a struggle that Emma and I have. We always have the conversation about whether we dealt with that trauma we had, whether we've dealt with it properly.
Do you think you have? Emma says no.
Yeah, I don't think we have. We got a lot of support while we were down in the hospital, and we spoke to a psychologist. And, they also have support staff for parents of children that have had traumatic incidents. And that was great while we were down there, and we took part in a bit of a research program as well with an organisation involved with the hospital. And it's sort of just stopped because it was a research, went for a certain period of time. But for us, it's probably something we've got to keep.
Is that something you'd like to do? Talk to a counsellor or talk to someone that might be able to offer some strategies?
Yeah, I guess so. And I mean, these things are always tough. It's always hard to seek someone out and talk to someone about mental issues you're having or whatever. But yeah, it's probably something we should.
I don't think you're on your own there, mate. I'm sure a lot of us in the room, me included, that could definitely get some support from time to time. Last question. I certainly appreciate you guys being so open and honest and making me cry tonight, Emma. I appreciate that. What's the long-term family plan? More kids? What are you guys thinking? Have you spoken about this one?
There's no immediate plans to expand our family.
Is that true, Lockie?
Definitely.
They say 2 is like 20. I don't know. Louie feels like 20 children on his own. There's lots of people in the room that know Lewis, and yeah, he is a cyclone. Yeah, I think, no, Frankie and Lewis are definitely perfect little
Just
pairs for
talk
us.
about poor Frankie, your lovely daughter doesn't get much
We
of
also
a...
have another child.
Yeah, by the way, another kid there. Does she sometimes feel, oh God, Louie gets all the attention because he's had this accident? Is there a bit of that? Or?
We don't really treat Lewis any differently to... I guess we have no reference point because he was the only child. We certainly don't treat him differently. We don't say that he has a disability or that he is vision impaired or that he's just Lewis. So she hasn't grown up with that, so it's not something she hears us talking to him or him asking us questions, so she knows that he's blind in one eye and that he got kicked by a horse and he went in a helicopter, so she knows a little bit, but again, that's a conversation when they're older that will certainly share information when it's the time.
I know I said last question, but I'm going to ask another one. I often do that.
Okay.
Blind in one eye, what does that mean for Louie in career aspects down the track?
So I think he was in RCU for a few days when we had a meeting with the ophthalmology team, and they shared that information with us, which was really devastating at the time, that there was something permanent that he was going to carry following his accident. We had the best the paediatric ophthalmologist in Australia working on Lou. So Dr. Glenn Gold, an incredible man. He was so good. We went to the meeting with him, with our support worker, and he said he knew we were devastated and he was very empathetic to that, but he said, to put it into perspective, guys, he can't go to war, he can't fly a plane, and he can't be in the police force. And we were totally okay with that. Especially me. I was fine with that.
This is definitely my last question, but it's to both of you. What would you say to the LifeFlight crew if they were here tonight? And don't cry, because I will if you do.
We had this conversation already, and I don't think I answered it because I couldn't. I think we're both pretty well in agreement, so there's nothing we could say or give them. No amount of money that we feel like we're indebted to them forever. They were just the most incredible team. I read on the LifeFlight Facebook page, they have their banner photo. I actually screenshot it because I wanted to, if I got a chance to, I was going to tell you what it said. And it was a quote from one of the crew. And it said, "There is no magic word you can say to someone whose loved one or relative is distressed or unwell, but they just want you to be relatable, honest, and to show some compassion." And that's exactly what they did, and more. So to be that rock for us under the most traumatic circumstances, there's nothing we could say.
I know you mentioned last time we spoke that you related the LifeFlight team to heroes. And that's, we talk about our sporting heroes and the rock stars and all that as heroes, but really for you guys, they're the heroes, right?
Yeah, definitely. Once they arrived at the hospital in Kingaroy, this weight sort of lifted off their shoulders, and we knew everything was going to be okay. They obviously had a lot broader skill set than what was offered at the Kingaroy Hospital, and they had a lot more technology at their fingertips. So we had a great sense of relief when they turned up.
I think too, and this goes to any people who work in emergency services, to choose to put yourself in those situations.
Every day.
Every day is your job. Is heroic to me. I don't think I could do it. I mean, athletes and things, they have amazing perseverance and stamina and training and all of those sorts of things, but I don't think you can compare to people that choose to do that for others every day.
I certainly put those in the category of heroes. I certainly put you two in that same category. Ladies and gentlemen, Lockie and Emma Brown.